Hello and welcome back. Um, this is the first time doing a video recording in a while, and it's been almost a year since our last one, and a lot has happened in that last year. So we're gonna, briefly go over what has happened and talk about where we're at now. So let's start with something that we talked about on our last podcast. And you've talked about it a lot, so we don't have to go into detail, but your experience in Cali, what happened and what was it like, what did it feel like, and how was the transition coming back to Vermont after that?
Yeah, well, as you said, we talked a lot about it in the last podcast, so most of the details are there, but I would like to say, I think it's worth saying that in California, it's like we started this ritual group 2 years ago, now just about 2 years, and it was I think it was about 13 months since we started that I decided I wanted to go to California. My intention in going down there was to meet someone who I'd met through a support group on Facebook who said she said that she had a very similar experience to using plant medicines to get off of, opiates. So that was my original intention to go down there, was to meet her and, maybe do a video recording, talk to her about that. But when I went down there, things went south very quickly. And so I found myself in a space where I didn't feel I had the support that I have up here in my home state, which is I felt as though I was, a good analogy would be as I was out of my depths. I was, as if I have a play pool here, and I have a lot of support there and the floaties, but then I go down to California and I'm in this deep ocean and without a life preserver.
And when you were down there, you were still going through the things that we were going through on our Sunday ritual,
Right. Well, the thing that catalyzed all of this was my plant medicine experience, and that was for me ultimately a confrontation with my mortality, because it was though I had been struggling with drugs for 10 years, and I was getting to a point where I was seeing no end or no way out. And I have this plant medicine experience, and I'm immediately confronted with the fact that I have a life. I have so much here in this life to capitalize on, and I have so much support, but it was like I couldn't see it until then. And it was like, why am I rushing? I felt I kind of have this idea about it now. Why was I rushing to death through drugs when there's no need to rush? I mean, I have a potentially a whole life ahead of me. I'm only 29. At that point I was 27. Why kill myself now through drugs, even though I made justifications that I wasn't killing myself? I was using it for other reasons. Ultimately, what I've come to realize now is that I was using it to escape life, and it led me to very close to death many times. So, and then the Sunday ritual that we developed after the plant medicine experience was an attempt at revisiting the idea of our own mortality.
Yeah, and it didn't originate like that, but we quickly learned that was the main function of it, was to bring up that fear of death and our mortality, and learn to accept it.
Let it run its course.
Yeah.
Kind of, so work through it so that I'm better suited to face life on a daily basis. Because if I'm confronted with that stuff all the time, I don't have the tools to be able to really work to live essentially the way I'd like to, the way people would like to live life. So,
and a huge factor in learning how to accept it or acquiesce with it is having that connection. That's kind of the remedy, the connection that you're going through that feeling. All humans are going to experience death, and we're all connected through that.
Right. And we quickly realized by doing this Sunday ritual is that the sooner we can confront death, I mean, that was the plant medicine experience too, but the sooner we can confront it and the more we can
Appreciate it. Yeah.
appreciate it, approach it, look at it, feel it, the better life itself gets. Because immediately, if I'm consciously dealing with the fact that I'm going to die someday, and in this culture we don't really talk about death. Death isn't a subject that's like accepted and talked about much. It's more, it's kind of hidden away and thrown to the side until later in life, when you're, old age and life is at your front door. Death is at your front door. It's like what we realize what we're trying to do is like, let's deal with it now so that we can live our life fully, so that we're not feeling it all throughout the week. Let's deal with it on one day. And it's been very helpful. It's helped me it's helped me in so many ways. I mean, I credit the plant medicine experience for showing me the potential that I have, that people have. But then, like, how do we, what's the aftercare plan? And we realized that the Sunday ritual was that. And in doing that, I stopped using illicit opiates overnight after the plant medicine experience, but I was still on opiates, legal opiates, methadone in a very high dose. And I realized I needed to get off of it. I think the plant medicine showed me the viability or the potential to get off of it. But then, it's like, okay, but that plant medicine has come and go, and now I'm back in this life. Well, how do I draw from it? So,
one thing I want to say, sorry to cut you off, but like, ever since, my first, psychedelic experience too, before that, death was not even like on the table. It was like conceptually, I knew I was going to die, but I never felt it. It was all repressed.
Right.
And ever since those experiences, there's been times in my life where I feel, existential dread and overwhelmed and paranoid. A lot of times it's in those Sunday rituals, but other times too.
Sounds uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. It's the most fear I've ever felt. But since changing my relationship with it and actually trying to seek that feeling, it's become a powerful motivator, and actually has become empowering rather than hindering and traumatic. Now, your experience in California, that was, kind of what happened is that experience was thrust onto you, that existential dread and anxiety. You were in a setting with no one you truly knew, no support, a different environment, a new environment, and it was overwhelming and traumatic.
Yeah, it felt like I was out to sea without a life preserver and completely alone, because the supports that I have on a weekly basis, not that I didn't still have you guys, but I don't know if it's my mind or what, but it just kind of felt as though there was a few things that happened very early on when I got to California that were very troubling and very, I think I talked about it in the last episode, and, I feel I welcome talking about it again, but I don't think it's important to get too into it right now. But there was a lot of things that happened early on that really scared me, startled me, and the way I reacted to that was, screw this, I'm gonna do whatever I want, and if I end up, really hurting myself or something, then so be it. And that is unfortunate, because that's the opposite of what a healthy therapy or ritual is getting at. The whole point of the ritual is feel the death in that moment so that we can better live life. Well, I was doing that, and I got off methadone once we started the Sunday ritual, and I continued to stay off of opiates. And then and then it's like, all right, I tell myself I'm ready to go to California. I wasn't. So then I'm out there, and it feels as though I'm naked, vulnerable, alone, so to speak, because I was just way out of my depths there. And what ended up happening was I ended up, using drugs again, because what does a recovering addict or addict do when they feel as though everything's closing in on them? They seek a sub. We see I so seek a substance that would help um, repress that so that I could get through it. But what ended up happening was I chose a drug that it's not that I went seeking it out, but it kind of came to the environment I was in when I was down there. Uh, it was methamphetamine, and that is something I've never done before. I've never had experience with, and um, I just
Had the opposite
it's
effect of repression.
it sounds comical because it sounds absolutely ludicrous that I would do this, but I did so much of it because I thought for some reason I was thinking more is better. And what I quickly realized with that substance with amphetamines is really, less is better. Actually, in my life, none is probably the way to go. It's definitely the way to go with amphetamines, but I think with a substance like that, less is better. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is like that was a very traumatic experience. It was a real confrontation with life and death, and I didn't have the support that I have with my normal life. What I've cultivated in the past 2 years since the plant medicine experience was completely shed away, and I felt like I didn't have that. So,
And it forced you to question and doubt everything that brought you to there too. So
right,
so it was, had the opposite effect of repression. It really brought all those fears to the surface, amplified them, and forced you to just stare at them.
so if we can conclude that experience real quick before moving to the next subject that we want to talk about, what would you say? Or
I would say that these experiences of existential dread, confrontation with death, or mortality, whatever you want to call it, can either be traumatic or they can be empowering, and it's based on the setting and the structure and the support. And
so
you can we've shown to ourselves that we can create a structure where feeling that is empowering.